So students, once again we continue with the text of the Tempest. We were doing Act 1 Scene 2 and we had finished 2 pages in the previous video tutorial, and today we will continue with the next 2 pages of this particular scene. So please take out your textbooks and please follow the text as I explain. So we move on from page 36 in your textbook. If you refer to the page 36, you will find that Prospero had just before this asked Ariel whether he had carried out Prospero's orders, and Ariel had started replying. He had been saying that he has carried out each and every aspect of Prospero's command, word by word, bit by bit, point by point. And now he goes on to explain in further details as to what exactly he had been doing. So he says, I boarded the king's ship, now on the beak, now in the waist, the deck, in every cabin I flamed amazement. Sometime I would divide and burn in many places. On the topmast, the yards, the bowsprit, would I flame distinctly. So he refers to the different parts of the royal vessel or the ship. He says that I boarded the ship, I went on board the ship. Of course, he is an airy spirit. Nobody can see him except Prospero. So he says that I boarded the ship, and then according to what you had told me to do, I started moving about from one part of the ship to another, sometimes on the beak, that is the bow or the front of the ship, sometimes in the waist, that is the middle of the upper deck of the ship, sometimes directly on the deck itself, and then I went inside each and every cabin of the ship. And what was I doing? I was burning like a flame, and I was causing amazement, shock, surprise. The people on board the ship, all they saw was flames suddenly inside the cabin or on the deck or on the front part of the ship, the middle of the ship, flames out of nowhere. Without any source of fire, suddenly flames appearing, and this amazed or shocked or scared the people on board the ship. So I started burning like a flame in different parts of the ship at different times. Sometimes I would go up on the topmast. It's the long pole in the middle of the ship, on top of which, or from the top of which, the sail is suspended. So I sometimes started burning on the top of that mast, sometimes inside the cabin, sometimes the deck, sometimes the front of the ship, sometimes the middle of the ship, and this caused a lot of shock and fear among the travelers who were on board the ship. And then he says, the yards and the bowsprit would I flame distinctly, then meet and join. So the extending bow of the ship on which the lower edge of the front sail is fastened. Now in the olden times, the ships used to make use of wind power to move forward, and so the sails were attached from the mast to the front part of the ship. So that extended portion of the front of the ship was known as bowsprit. So that is what he is talking about, that sometimes the yards are the crossbar on a mast which supports a sail that's about a yard long. So that's why they are called yards. There's not just one but several layers. And then sometimes the front part of the ship, the bowsprit, would I flame distinctly. then meet and join, and then suddenly I would distribute myself, because he's a spirit, he can divide himself. And so there were several flames burning in several parts of the ship, and then all these flames came together, joined together to become a bigger flame. So that is what he's talking about here. Jove's lightnings, the precursors of the dreadful thunderclaps, more momentary and sight outrunning, were not the fire and cracks of sulphurous roaring the most mighty Neptune seemed to besiege. When he says that Jove or Jupiter are the same. Jupiter is the supreme god or the king of the gods, and according to Roman mythology, as given alongside, you can see his chief weapon is the thunderbolt and lightning. So not only did I burn like a flame, I also created claps of thunder and lightning, which are associated with the supreme god or god of the gods, Jove or Jupiter. So all these things were actually illusions and hallucinations. These were not really happening. The sea was calm. There was no tempest. There was no storm. But people on board the ship saw that they were stuck in the middle of a storm. There was fire burning everywhere on the ship, and there were flashes of lightning and claps of thunder. And this was what caused the sea or Neptune. Neptune refers to the god of the sea. So because there was thunder and lightning in the sky, it was an indication to Neptune, that is the god of the sea, to create huge waves. So storm waves were also created. So the ship was altogether in much distress. It was in deep trouble. The people on board the ship were fearing the worst. Now all this was created by Ariel, the airy spirit. It was not real. It was all a fake illusion created by Ariel. So it says, the sulphurous roaring of the thunder resulted in most mighty Neptune seemed to besiege and make his bold waves tremble, his dread trident shake. So the thunder and lightning in the sky seemed to produce sulphurous fumes and seemed to attack the sea down below. You see, when you have a flash of lightning, it seems to come down straight from the heavens all the way down to the earth, as if to touch the earth somewhere down below. And if you are in the middle of the sea, then it seems to touch the sea water, and it really does. And that resulted in Neptune creating huge waves, because Neptune was disturbed by Jove's thunder. So Neptune refers to the sea. So his chief weapon is the trident. And what is the trident? It is a three-pronged spear. Neptune, the god of the sea, I will be posting the pictures of Neptune and also Jove, and even the picture of an old-fashioned ship with its parts labeled, if possible, after this video. So you can continue to listen now and follow the text, and later on I will be showing you the pictures of all these things so that the concept becomes very clear to each one of you. So he says that Neptune, the god of the sea, with his weapon, the three-pronged spear which he was holding in his hand, started shaking because of such disturbance created by Jove's lightning and thunder. Prospero says, my brave spirit. So Prospero is praising Ariel. Brave here does not mean brave as it means today. Here brave means fine or excellent or splendid. This is Old English, Shakespeare's English, and the meanings of certain words in English have changed ever since Shakespeare's time. So now what we mean by brave is courageous, But when you read brave in Shakespeare's writings, it means Fine, fine or splendid or excellent, something very pleasant or extraordinary to look at. So my brave spirit, Prospero praises him and says, who was so firm, so constant that this coil would not infect his reason. So was there anybody on board that ship at that very moment who was still able to maintain his patience and tolerate whatever was happening? Was there anybody constant? Constant means one who was not disturbed by the happenings, one who was not bothered by what was going on. Was there anybody on board who could take this with a kind of consistency, with a kind of tolerance? Was there anybody like that? Was there anyone whose reason was not infected, whose reasoning ability was not affected by the happenings? So Ariel says, not a soul, not a soul, not a single person on board. Everyone was worried, tensed, anxious, and scared. Not a soul, but felt a fever of the mad. They almost went mad, just as you are affected by madness, which is like a fever or a disease. Similarly, these people, they were affected by fear when I started doing all this, and played some tricks of desperation, and in fear they tried to do things which were desperate. It only proved that they were desperate. When a person becomes desperate, he is ready to go for anything. That is what they were trying to do. All but mariners plunged in the foaming brine and quit the vessel. And ultimately what happened? Each one of them on board the ship, except the mariners or the sailors, all the passengers on board, they jumped into the sea water. Brine is the sea water, foaming sea water, and they left the vessel by jumping into the water, because they feared the worst and they thought that the vessel was about to sink. So they jumped into the water to save their own lives if they could, except the mariners. The mariners did not jump. Now the mariners are more courageous than normal passengers, because the mariners, they are always with the vessel in the sea, and they face all such calamities with a kind of bravery, and they are very courageous men. And that is one reason. Second reason is that the mariners are not supposed to quit the ship till the very last moment. That is the pledge they normally take when they become sailors or mariners, that they have to stay with the ship, particularly the captain of the ship or the master and the boatswain, and then of course the sailors. So the sailors remained. Sailors in this case includes the master and the boatswain, because they are also sailors after all, and of course then they have their rankings. So the mariners were there, but the people traveling in the ship, they all became so desperate that they jumped into the sea water and left the ship. Then all afire with me, the king's son Ferdinand, with hair upstaring, then like reeds not hair, was the first man that leaped, cried, hell is empty and all the devils are here. So the very first person to dive into the water was the son of the king, referring to Ferdinand. So the Prince of Naples, he was the first one, and he was so scared that his hair was standing straight upon his head, and they looked like reed. They look like reeds. So what are reeds? These are plants which grow inside the water and also at the edge of water. Okay, so these are kind of waterborne plants. So they have long cylindrical bodies. So that's why his hair was standing straight on his head and was comparable to reads by, as stated here by Ariel. So Ariel says that the king's son was the first one to jump into the water. He cried or shouted, "Hell is empty. Hell has become empty. All the devils have come out of hell and they are here. They have attacked us. Jump." And he jumped. So he was the one who was scared the most, and he was the first one to jump and leave the ship. Prospero says, "Why, that's my spirit. But was not this my shore?" Why, that's the way you have done it. Good, very good, my spirit. I am proud of you. So this is a way of praising Ariel. Prospero says, "Why, that's my spirit." And then he says, "But was not this nigh shore?" But then, didn't you do all this to those people and the ship near the shore of this island? I hope you did not do it far out into the sea. I told you to do it when the ship comes very close to the shore of this island. So did you follow that? Ariel says, "Close by, my master." Of course, my master. They were very close to the seashore when I made this happen. So what benefit will it have if all this is done near the shore? That the people on board the ship, if they jump into the water also, the water will not be too deep, because near the shore the water is not that deep. And secondly, they can easily swim ashore and save their lives. So that's the reason why Prosper is asking this question. So Ariel confirms it and says that yes, it was done close to the shore. So we have finished with that page. Now we move on to page 37. 36 is over. Page 37. And Prosper says, "But are they, Ariel, safe?" But then what is the condition in which you have left them? Are they safe? Are they all right? So Ariel explains, "Not a hair perished." So part for the whole. This is a figure of speech. So Ariel says, not even a single hair has died. Meaning to say, not even the slightest damage has been done to any of them. They are all safe and sound. And not only that, he adds, on their sustaining garments, not a blemish. On the dress or the dresses that they are wearing, there is not even a spot. Their dresses are also perfectly all right. There's not even a single spot or mark of struggle or any kind of filth or dirt or anything that might have possibly happened because they have struggled to save their lives by jumping into the sea water and all that. Nothing like that. Even their dresses, even their clothes are absolutely fresh. But fresher than before. In fact, by means of magic, of course, Ariel has made all this happen. So he says that I have made their clothes fresher than before. And as thou badest me, in troops I have dispersed them about the isle. And as you had ordered me, as you had asked me, badest me, commanded me, I have dispersed them all over this island in separate groups. I have divided them and put them in different parts of this island according to your instructions. So there is a purpose behind doing this, and we shall soon find out as the play progresses why this was ordered by Prospero and in what way it helps Prospero. So he says that I have divided them in groups, big and small groups, and I have scattered them in different parts of this island, but they are all fine, absolutely fine. No harm has been done to any of them. The king's son have I landed by himself. As far as the king's son is concerned, Ferdinand, the Prince of Naples, I have separated him from everyone else, and I have landed him in a part of this island all by himself, where when he looks around, he won't be able to see anyone from his group anywhere. He will be all alone. So that's what I have done with him. I have landed him by himself, whom I left cooling of the air with sighs in an odd angle of the isle, and sitting his arms in this sad knot. Ariel acts and shows to Prospero that I have left him in a sad and pensive mood in a particular corner of the island. Angle means corner. And there he is sitting now with his arms folded in front of him upon his knees, and his knees drawn up, his legs drawn up a bit, and his arms crossed and resting on his knees, and his face on his arms, face down on his arms, because he is sad. Why is he sad? Well, he should be believing, or rather, he is given to believe because of the situation that he is the only survivor. After the ship capsized, his father and all others on board the ship have died, and he is the only person who has survived the shipwreck. So I have done this as far as done this to Ferdinand as far as placing them in different parts of the island is concerned. So he is sitting with his arms in a sad knot, his arms folded sadly like this. Ariel shows Prospero how the arms are folded. Now Prospero says, of the king's ship the mariners say, how thou hast disposed, and all the rest of the fleet. Now as far as the king's ship is concerned and the mariners, how have you taken care of that? So Ariel says, safely in harbour is the king's ship, in the deep nook where once thou calledst me up at midnight to fetch dew from the still vexed Bermuthes. There she is hid. The king's ship is absolutely safe and sound. I have taken it to a very hidden or a very isolated corner of Bermuda Islands. Bermuda Islands, where once in the past you had asked me to go and fetch dewdrops, from where you had asked me to fetch dewdrops during the course of the midnight for some purpose. So I have taken the ship in that place, and I have kept it there safe and sound, away from the elements. It is safely harbored. It is harbored safely in the Bermuda Islands. Bermuthes refers to Bermuda Islands, the name of a group of islands somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. So he says that I have taken the ship away. So from the Mediterranean Sea, from near Italy, all the way to Bermuda Island, situated in the Atlantic Ocean, close to Mexico and South America. A cluster of islands known as the Bermuda Islands. So the ship has been taken there within a fraction of a second. It's all magic. It's all supernaturalism. Only a spirit can do it. No human being can possibly do such a thing. So he says that I have kept the ship there. It is the same place where you had sent me earlier to fetch dewdrops during midnight. Ariel had been sent by Prospero to Bermuda Islands to fetch drops of dew, which Prospero required to practice his magical powers. So that's how Ariel knows the place, and he says that he has taken the ship there and has harbored it there. There she is hid, the mariners all under hatches stowed. And the ship is hidden there, and all the mariners are sleeping under the deck, inside their resting places. So I have induced magical sleep in the eyes of all the mariners, so that they are all fast asleep, and they will be sleeping for as long as I don't take the spell off. That's what Ariel means to say. Who with a charm joined to their suffered labor I have left asleep. So with a charm of mine, with a spell of mine, charm refers to magical spell, I have made them fall asleep. They have been working, toiling very hard to save the ship. So because of that, they were already very tired. Plus I have applied some magical charm. So they will not wake up so soon. They will sleep for long, at least for a few hours. So I have left them asleep inside the ship. And for the rest of the fleet, which I dispersed, they all have met again and are upon the Mediterranean float. And for the rest of the ships in the fleet of ships, you see, the king's ship was not moving all by itself. There were other ships also before and after the king's ship, because it was a complete royal fleet of several ships, including the royal vessel, which was traveling along the Mediterranean Sea or voyaging along the Mediterranean Sea, going towards Italy, going towards Naples. When suddenly this particular vessel, the royal ship, was spotted by Prospero, and then all this happened. But then what happened to the rest of the fleet, the other ships in the group? Well, that is what Ariel is saying here, that they were dispersed by me when I raised the tempest, but they have all met once again. They have been able to find each other out in the sea, and now together they are once again moving with this belief that the royal vessel has been destroyed and the king has died. So they are returning to Naples to give this sad news to the people of Naples. So they are already on their way back home, because not a trace of the royal vessel is visible in the sea, and these people on board the other ships, they believe that the king and all his companions have died. So they have met again and are upon the Mediterranean float. They are once again sailing across the Mediterranean Sea, bound sadly home for Naples. They are bound for Naples with a heavy heart, sadly, supposing that they saw the king's ship wrecked and his great person perish. So that is what I explained just now. They are supposing, or they are believing, that they have seen with their own eyes that the king's ship has been destroyed and all on board have died, perished, including the king himself. Prospero says, Ariel, thy charge exactly is performed, but there is more work. What is the time of the day? Ariel, you have carried out your task to every aspect that I had instructed you to do. You have carried it out well, but there is more work for you. What is the time of the day? He's asking Ariel the time. What time is it? There is some more work for you. Ariel says, past the mid-season. It is past noon. That means the time is after 12 o'clock, 12 noon. So past the mid-season. So midday, it has already passed midday. Prospero says, at least 2 glasses. The time twixt 6 and now must by us both be spent more preciously. At least 2 hours. I think at least 2 hours. 2 glasses means hour glass. So 2 hours must have passed. So the time between 6 and now, so it is 2 o'clock now. It is past the mid-season, means it's past midday. That means it's after 12 o'clock. And according to Prospero's guess, it is 2 o'clock. And he says that from 2 o'clock, from now up to 6 o'clock, the next 4 hours that we have in our hand, these 4 hours have to be spent most carefully. These 4 hours have to be spent most carefully by us. So we'll stop here for the day. Prospero has further plans for all those people on board the ship whom he has brought upon the island with the help of Ariel. We shall see by and by what he does with each one of them. So that's it. Thank you very much.